G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. Today we are going to talk about the round 7 clash against the Gold Coast Suns. And I'm suddenly looking forward to this game. I was not looking forward to this, a couple of weeks ago. I thought this was going to be a potentially ugly result, given how Gold Coast battered us last year. A bit of PTSD there, but now here we stand right before the game, and I'm thinking this could actually be a really good game. And, this is the first time I've tipped this year. Now, to what extent am I confident? Not very confident at all. I actually am probably 55% Gold Coast, 45% West Coast in my head. And I have decided to back us in anyway. That's a stupid way to do your tipping, but it's kind of like I'm rewarding the boys for playing so well that it's about time I backed us in to win a game. So hopefully the best occurs. So last time we met the Gold Coast Suns, it was 43 to 113. Now, I think I was also in America when that happened. Did I miss the game? But, we can go through and analyze the team changes like I've done, but I don't know what the point is, because I feel like the demonstrated difference between where we're at then and where we are now is very pronounced. I will just say that there were about 9 changes from the last time we played Gold Coast that I estimate will be the case this time. And God knows what kind of changes they've made to their team. I think as well, I look back at 2022, we played them at this ground, at Metricon. I'm going to still call it Metricon, even though it's Heritage. No, it's not even Heritage Bank. It was Heritage Bank for a year. Now it's People's First. I don't care. I'm becoming an old man, and it's Metricon to me, and it will be for the rest of the time. Yeah, in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, we lost that game by 3 points. So that kind of demonstrates we're not horrible at this ground. I think where we get vulnerable, or where we typically have been vulnerable in Queensland, has been when it's gotten dewy and, sinks to being quite a contested game. Now, I believe the forecast is 24 and sunny up there in the Gold Coast for this Sunday. I think it's Sunday. Forgive me, the time zone in America throws me out the entire days. But it should be a clean game, I hope. It's also worth noting, we have changed our game style so much that I really don't know the answer to whether or not we're going to be a bad wet weather team anymore, because we have become one of the best contested sides in the competition this season, with a fixture that has seen us play good teams and bad. In fact, I would say it's been a fairly tough fixture. So from that body of work, to be second in the competition for contested possessions suggests, if it is dewy and it's wet, then that actually might become a strength for us going forward. Who knows? For the record as well, the website I use, you can look at the last 5 games to track stats, and the last 5 games is basically this year minus round 1. And I ran the stats for that. We are the number 1 contested possession side if you ignore the Port Adelaide game. So the last 5 weeks, we are number 1. Second is Brisbane, and third is Carlton, whereas for the whole season, Carlton are first. So it's just worth noting. That is our absolute one wood going into this game. Now, by comparison, I did say in the previous video on this channel, or the second last video on this channel, is that we are well ahead of Gold Coast, who are 7th in this stat, and we are also 0.1 ahead of them in clearances per game. So basically nothing. But, in my head, Gold Coast were a strong clearance side, and we're actually better than them in this particular stat. It is worth noting Harley Reid is not going to be playing in this game, so he's been rested. And personally, I'm comfortable with the logic to rest him. It had to happen at some point. We haven't had the luxury of doing that with young players much over the last couple of years, and it had to happen at some point. It's a little bit earlier than I expected, but when you consider, he's just had a monstrous couple of weeks, and this is going to be one of the largest trips we make this year. I think it had to happen at some point, and this game makes sense. So it's worth noting. I'm probably going to stop short of agreeing with people who say he's our best player, and I also don't agree that he's the reason we've come good, but he is certainly an important part of that. Top handful of performers at the club this season, it has to be said, I reckon. And so even if you conservatively say he's our 3rd best midfielder behind TK and Yo, you could push and say better than Kelly. I'm probably not there yet, but if you take away our 3rd best mid, it does weaken us for this game. And it's also worth noting Tom Barrass did not get up from his suspension that he challenged, which I laughed at. I don't know if anyone followed the tribunal case where we appealed the decision, but it made me laugh. The Eagles started referencing Tom Barrass's philanthropic interests, which made me laugh. It made me feel like West Coast just took the piss, which they had every right to do, given Charlie Cameron got off in bizarre circumstances. So we know there's no Reid, and we know there's no Barrass. Midfield battle of this game will be interesting. I'd rate Gold Coast midfield. Flanders, Rao, Anderson, and Miller are kind of their Fab Four, that's funny. And Closey as well is another player to watch who's had a really good start to his career. But some midfield stats specifically for you. You got Flanders, who is the 8th best ball winner in the league this season. Anderson is 12th, Miller is 21st. So that's 3 in the top 1. And for context, the first Eagle on this list is at 24. So that's 3 Gold Coast Suns who win the ball more so than any Eagle. Raul is number 1 in the league for clearances. Elliot Yeo is still 3rd. So that stat is still accurate. So we're coming up against a strong midfield here. Now, we are like level pegging with them in clearances. We're better than them in contested possessions, but where they smash us is uncontested ball. So to speak specifics, we are last in the league for uncontested ball. So we're really good at winning the ball in dispute, but it's around the ground, accumulating those possessions. Controlling the footy, we are particularly weak at, and that makes sense. Simo throughout the preseason has said, we're going to start this rebuild focusing on contest, locking the ball in our forward half, pressure, and the stats reflect that. We're just not a very good side at winning the ball on the outside. And you look at who our outside mids are: Luke Edwards, Chesser, Gaff came in and was dropped. It's a clear deficiency, although we are seeing G&B play a little bit more of a wing role. We're second last in the league in general for disposal differential, so we don't get our hands on the footy, but when it's there to be won, we are damn good at it. In fact, there's almost no one better in the league. Gold Coast are 5th. They're 4th in the league for uncontested ball, so winning the ball on the outside, and 5th overall for disposal differential. So on that logic, we're probably going to have far less disposals. It's just really important that when the ball is there to be won in dispute, that we really smash them and make the most of that. And that's where Harley Reid would have been handy, but unfortunately we go into this game without him. Reid out doesn't really diminish our contested possession advantage, or if you want to call it an advantage, but our dominance, because he has generally been winning more uncontested ball than contested. And that's the way it should be. He should be playing more outside where he can really use his pace and skill, so that makes sense. But either way, without Reid, we still would have smashed Fremantle and Richmond in contested possessions regardless. We do lose a few clearances though. He was getting 6s and 7s. He's been unreal. I've got a bit of a stats deep dive, so I'm just going to rattle off a few more that are relevant to this game. Mac Andrew is leading the league for intercepts per game. So not total intercepts. He's only played 3 games this year, but he's had 34 intercept possessions in those 3 games, which puts him at 11 per game, 11.33 per game. That's unreal. So he is actually going to be potentially a bit of a headache for us if we're not, driving the ball inside 50 with any real intention. A few other stats here that are interesting. I ran a list of score involvements and individual players, like which players getting the most score involvements per game. So there's Yo at 11th and Waterman is up in 9th. It's also worth noting the entire top 15 is dominated by top clubs: GWS, the Demons, the Blues, Sydney, and Port Adelaide. And then you have 2 Eagles in that top 15. Interesting. I don't know how much to make of that, but it's certainly worth noting. So let's talk about team news. Yeah, like I said at the start, TB's out, Reid's out. I think this is going to be a bit of an issue. I'm actually more concerned about the TB thing, not because individually he's been amazing, but it's the structural element to it that I'm a little bit iffy about. And TB was great in the Derby, but suddenly McGovern might be the only key positional back we play in this game if you consider Rotherham more of a third tall half back, which I do. And Hoff, who's been doing a great job on small forwards, may have to move back into a third tall defender role. Now, the good thing is I don't think Gold Coast have a clear small forward, other than say like a Ben Ainsworth, who kind of plays more of a high half forward role anyway. I don't think there's a clear matchup for Hoff there, so maybe he could play third tall, maybe Rotherham plays key back. I don't really like the look of that. Ben King is clearly their best aerial threat up forward, their key positional threat. Then you got Jed Walter and Ethan Reid, who are teenagers. Jed Walter is built like an absolute man though. So, if Rotherham does line up on Walter, in terms of strength, I actually think Walter might have him covered. But failing that, if we don't want to go with a ragtag team of key defenders in McGovern, Rotherham and Hoff, which I don't like the idea of, the only other bloke we can bring in is Harry Edwards. Now, Harry Edwards has had an injury interrupted preseason. He played 1 or 2 games, got suspended, came back last week, and I think he did all right statistically, but hasn't been in good form in the waffle, no doubt. But structurally, he might be the right guy. So let me know in the comments what you think of that. Should we bring Harry Edwards in this week? In fact, by the time you're watching this, we probably already have the team changes named. I'm recording this on a Wednesday afternoon here in America. By the time you see this, you probably know who the teams are, at least the extended team. So then there's who replaces Reid. Now, like I said in the previous video, the Sheed sub decision was weird. Like, we didn't give him more minutes. In fact, he played less minutes. I know he's going to probably do some running to build up his conditioning after the game. So that's a wait and see as to whether he's actually ready, but it's a logical thing to bring in Dom Sheed for Harley Reid as that number 3 midfielder in this team. So we need to replace TB and we need to replace Sheed as sub in this instance. Now, Harry Edwards might be the one that makes me feel most comfortable, probably also because there's not really anyone else that I think is banging down the door. So I'd go probably Harry Edwards for Tom Barrass, keep our structure, give Harry Edwards a chance, even though he probably hasn't earned it in an emphatic fashion or anything like that. Dom Sheed comes into the midfield. And then the sub, I've given us 3 choices. Now, we could go with Luke Edwards to come back in. I don't know, maybe he's doing something that I don't quite see because I think he's been okay at best. But he is a chance to come back in his sub after he's recovered from his concussion. Zane True is probably the one performer in the waffle that is probably banging the door down. And they may decide that Liam Ryan's had enough minutes in the waffle, even though he possibly hasn't earned it either. So those are 3 sub options that I'd probably go with Liam Ryan, purely for the upside. I know he hasn't quite earned it, but I could see him doing well as a sub. Like I said, I know I did kind of think that the Sheed decision last week didn't really pan out. And you could apply that same logic here to Liam Ryan as the sub. So I'm iffy about these changes. The reality is I just don't think we have too much inspiring form of any player in the waffle to really bang down the door. So Harry Edwards, Dom Sheed, and then Liam Ryan as the sub. It's actually not as inspiring as you might have thought it would be at the start of the year with Dom Sheed and Liam Ryan being fit. But that is kind of just a reflection of not an amazing amount of squad depth at the moment. So overall, what is my prediction? Like I said, I have tipped West Coast. I think the mentality piece is going to be important here. I think the psychology of this game is probably where it's going to be won and lost. So, West Coast, do they drink their own bathwater and fail to really motivate themselves for a big trip? Are they able to match it with the Gold Coast, who have won 3 games at home this year against Richmond, Adelaide, and Hawthorn? Again, not really inspiring opposition, and as it currently stands, I think we are the toughest game out of those 4, this version of us. I feel kind of confident that this Eagles side won't necessarily have gotten carried away. We've had 2 weeks at home. This is a long journey, but I think they're still hungry. There's still more points to be proven. It's not as though we've necessarily had enough wins for us to sit back. It's been a long couple of years. I reckon the senior players in particular will be thinking, no, let's, put our foot to the gas even further and continue to prove people wrong. And that's what I'm hoping we see. That's what I'm backing us in to do. It may be that we still play well and we lose. We haven't been involved in a close game yet this year, so that will be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm going to back in the Eagles by 11 points. I'm fully prepared to have this wrong. Feel a little bit murky as to the read on us at the moment. 2 weeks in a row, we smashed expectations. Is it a false dawn? Is this like 2009, like I said the other day in my video, where we had some big wins and then we're inconsistent? It's worth noting we're not that young. We were older and probably more experienced than Fremantle in that derby. So there's enough senior experience there to make me think, okay, they're not going to necessarily be fickle. Whether we win or not is an entirely different question. So Eagles by 11. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, guys. What are you considering for this game? Like I said, by the time you watch it, you're going to know the team, and I don't currently know the team. So I'm hoping we're all happy with the changes, whatever they're made. But let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.